Hi and welcome. This is the BFD3 setup for Reaper to record individual kit pieces within Reaper. We'll assume that you've created a preset that has a kit and groove, and you've set your ambient mics to your liking, and now you're going to set it up in Reaper so that you can record individual kit pieces to their own tracks. So let's just jump right in. Go to Insert, select Instrument, Virtual Instrument on New Track. Select VSTI on the left. In the right pane, select BFD3 64 232CH, which means 32 channels. Highlight that, select OK. You'll be presented with a build routing confirmation. You only want 1 and 2 outputs at this point, so select No from this menu. The BFD will go through a scan, at least mine does. And usually this doesn't take very long at all. And then we can close that. There we go. Now, at this point, you would want to load your kit, load your preset. And there I have my preset is loaded. From the written version that I posted on the forum, I mentioned that in the ambient mics that you make sure that link is enabled. Do not enable link. Again, I repeat, do not enable this at all. Okay. Now the first thing to do here is to center up all of your pans, because you're going to pan these later on when you go to edit your drums in Reaper. So just double click here. This is the easiest way to do it. Going over here to individual kick pieces, this here is a little more difficult. It doesn't center it up quick. But go ahead and center them up here. Then select your kick drum and set your overhead mics. Your overhead mics are here for each kit piece. So just go through each kit piece and set the overhead mics. My overhead is set to 3, minus 3 for the overhead, minus 15 for the room, and 0 for the ambient. So that's what I've done for each kit piece. So you go over, and every kit piece that has already been set. Okay, and you do that now. Okay, until they're all done. Link is not enabled. Now you need to go to this little expand, contract all channels icon, which is right in the middle of the BFD3 screen, and select that. And you'll notice that the kick out, kick in, snare top, snare bottom, there's 3 faders for the kick and 3 faders for the snare. Make sure that that is expanded. Very important. Okay, so let's get down to assigning auxiliary channels to all of your kit pieces so that they can be routed through the VST into Reaper. So with it expanded open, the kick drum is going to has 3 faders. We're going to send all that to auxiliary 1. But you can't send anything to an auxiliary channel without creating the auxiliary channels first. So what we're going to do is we're going to create, since we have 9 kit pieces, we're going to create 9 auxiliary channels. So from the little plus symbol, add auxiliary channel. 9 of them. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now for the purposes of this demonstration, I will be combining the 3 kick faders into 1 auxiliary channel. For those that are a little bit more daring and want to have more control, you can actually assign a separate auxiliary channel to to the kick in and the kick out if you really want to. But for this purpose, we're just going to go ahead and assign one auxiliary channel to each instrument. So we go to the kick in, and from there we select auxiliary 1, where it says kick at the bottom, and we select auxiliary 1. And then where it says master for the kick, we select auxiliary 1. For the snare top, we select auxiliary 2. And the snare bottom, auxiliary 2. And the master snare to auxiliary 3. And then the rest, the hi-hat, auxiliary 3, the high tom 4, the mid tom auxiliary 5, the high tom auxiliary 6, crash auxiliary 7, crash 2 auxiliary 8, and the ride auxiliary 9. Now, at this point, because we're combining the kick and the snares to auxiliary 2, we can go ahead and contract the so you don't have to look at the 3 faders for the kick and the snare. So it's already there. Okay, at this point we want to go over to your auxiliary channels now, and we want to select for auxiliary 1 mono channel 1, auxiliary channel we want to select mono 2, and from auxiliary 3 mono 3, auxiliary 4 mono 4, auxiliary 5 mono 5, auxiliary 6 mono 6, auxiliary 7 mono 7, auxiliary 8 mono 8, and auxiliary 9 to mono 9. So what we've done here is we've bypassed the overhead mics and have sent them to the auxiliary channels. And now we've routed the auxiliary channels to channels that Reaper can read. Mono 1 is assigned, and I'll show you how to do that. But right now what we're going to do is we're going to assign, now that we've created our auxiliary channels, we want to put the ambient mics on with our kit pieces. So highlight the kick, come over to ambient mics, and you've got these 3 little boxes on the right hand side, and select auxiliary 1 for all 3. And then we go snare, auxiliary 2, and the hi-hat, auxiliary 3, and that'll be for all 3 of them. Auxiliary 3, and the tom, auxiliary 4, the mid tom, auxiliary 5, the low tom, auxiliary 6, crash, auxiliary 7, crash 2, auxiliary 8, and finally the ride, auxiliary 9. One thing that's very important to understand, as you can see, the auxiliary channels are available here. You have to create those channels before, or they won't show up here. Okay, so effectively what we've done now is we've taken our kit pieces and we've assigned them to an auxiliary channel, and we've assigned to the auxiliary channel a destination in Reaper, and we've also assigned the overhead mics to each kit piece, so you have full control over the ambient mic. So you could lower the ambient mic for, say, like the toms a little bit, or add a little bit to one or the other. Whereas if you don't do it this way, the overhead mics are global, okay, and affects every instrument. This way you have full control. Okay. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm not using kick or snare bleed, so highlight the kick and select off for the kick bleed, and the snare bleed, click off, which I have already done so. Okay, now at this point we're ready now to start creating tracks and sending the individual tracks into Reaper. You want to open your FX1, this little window that you used to when you first initiated BFD3 in Reaper, and select the 2in 2/32 out button, and you'll see you get this weird little window with a bunch of numbers and symbols. In the bottom left hand corner there's a plus sign. You keep clicking on that until you have 32 rows, and you'll see the numbers as they go down. There's 15, 20, 24, 28. There we go, 32 and 32. If you read these numbers up here, you'll see that the first, these are the destination numbers, 1 through 32. Okay, now the first 16, if you line them up, they cover BFD3S01, BFD3S01. These are stereo destinations. So if you want to record BFD in stereo, which I don't recommend, you can do so, but we're not going to be doing that. So the mono channels, because we assigned auxiliary 1 to mono 1, okay, mono 1 is BFD3M01, and that starts at 17. And if you can see that, it says track 17 VST1, and it reads BFD3M for mono 01, and you've got one, and there's 16 of them. Okay, so you can have 16 auxiliary channels in mono. If you run out and you need more, you can just add them here in stereo and then convert them to a mono channel later on. But for the purposes of this, we're going to be using mono channels. So keep this window open, it's important. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going to add the tracks and set their destinations. So from the track button, insert a new track. In the bottom right hand corner of the track, record input, select that. Record output, select record output mono. Then go to the input output, which is the little I/O button, and this is the routing for track 2. On the right hand side is the receives. You'll always be receiving from BFD3. Okay, so you select BFD3 and it opens this further options. Below that is the word audio. From the audio, you just select mono source and then number 17. Okay, remember that number 17 is where monos starts. So we'll just take one quick look at that again, and you can see it says BFD3 mono 1, and if you line it up, it goes right with number 17 right there. You can see it right there. Okay, so the next channel is going to be mono 2. Okay, but before we before we go there, click on your new track that you made in the box there and select kick. Type the word kick. There. That channel's ready. Okay, so now we go to track, insert new track, output, record output mono, select input output, the receives, always BFD3, and from the drop down, mono source, since we're using 17, we're off to the next one, which is 18. And then double click on your track and type in the word snare, hit enter. Okay, and go to track, insert new track, record output mono, and input output receives BFD3, and what number are we at here? 18. This will be number 19, mono source 19, and that's the hi-hats. So we double click on that open space above your meters, and then go to track, insert new track. Just make sure we're going to get this right here. Okay, it starts with high tom, so this next one's going to be the high tom. So record output, record mono, input output. Always BFD3 is your receive, and then just to double check, 19 would be number 20, mono source number 20, and that is your high tom. And then we go back to track, insert new track, record output mono, select your receives, always BFD3, your output will be 21, your source will be 21, sorry, 21, and that will be your mid tom. Then go to track again, insert a new track, record output mono, the input output, add new receive, select BFD3, and if you hover your mouse over the previous one, you can find out what channel the previous one was. The previous one was 21, so then this one will be 22, mono source 22, and that will be the low tom. Now we go to track, insert new track, record output mono, input output, add new receive BFD3. What number are we working on here? 23, this will be number 23, mono source 23, that will be crash 1, I believe. Now go to track, insert a new track, record output mono, input output, add your receive, always BFD3, what was the last one? 23, so this will be 24, mono source 24, and that will be crash 2 on your mixer. And then insert the track. I have to move them down a little bit here. Output, record output mono, select your input output, BFD3, and what was the last one we did? 24, so this will be 25. Now you see your stereo sources are here too, so you can have stereo sources all the way to 32, so you can see 1, 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, so they're available if you want to. And that was 25. I'm pretty sure that was the right number. Yep, 25. And then we go over here to the new track and we type in ride. and that is done. Okay, at this point, enable arm all your tracks. You're now all armed. Bring up your BFD and play the groove. You should be able to see what's going on here with my groove. Very good there. So this is basically just a test groove. I just made sure that everybody had something on it, like all the instruments are being played. So what we'll do now is we'll go back here and hit record. And as you can see, let me get some of this stuff out of the way here. Okay, even the ride. So there you go. Everybody's got their own, they're all on their own track. And if I turn it off and I play this back, it should sound the same. So that's how it's done. Okay, now be sure to save your preset here. I have BFD3 test 3 saved. Okay, and then go up and save your project. I call mine BFD3 all and hit save. Now all you have to do when you got this set up, all you have to do is load your kit and your groove, set your tempo and your volumes, because you can hit play, you know, right, and set all your volumes, okay, without recording, right? So here my kick is obviously right off the bat, you know, so obviously my kick is too loud and it's clipping. So you want to go through there and do that. But this is the wonderful thing about it. Once you got this set up, got your volume set up, got the way you're sounding, hit record, and it will do it all in one single pass. This is Paco, and I hope you enjoyed this video on how to set up BFD3 in Reaper to record to its own tracks with full control over your overhead mics. Hi, this is Paco. I'm going to do a short tutorial on how to do kick and snare bleeds to put them on their own tracks. Using the previous setup, the first thing to do is to unarm all of the tracks, all of your kit pieces, and only arm the kick and the snare. Then go into BFD, select the kick drum, and turn on kick bleeds. Select the snare and turn on kick bleeds. So when you hit the kick, you can see we're getting activity on the snare, and when we hit the snare, we're getting activity on the kick. These are the kick and snare bleeds. So in order to record the kick bleeds, you need to go into your groove editor, and all of your grooves, you have to mute the snare. If we're going to do kick bleeds, you mute the snare in the groove editor, and that includes any fills that you might have or any of the grooves that might be on the right hand side of your screen. I've asked the people at BFD3 to provide us with separate faders. In the fader section here, I've asked for faders here instead of having to go through this process. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I have only one groove. I've muted the snare you have the kick and the snare armed, and then you go ahead and you play your groove, record your groove. Now, since the snare was muted, what we do is we remove the kick. What's been recorded on the snare, because it was muted in BFD. You see there, it was muted. What we have here is the kick bleed. So what we do is we go up to track and we insert a new track. Well, I didn't want it there. I want it at the bottom, okay. And then take what was recorded on the snare and move it down, and then write kick bleed. And now you've got your kick bleed. So, and then to do the snare bleed is just the opposite. So you unmute, so you go back and you unmute all of your snares and all of your grooves, okay, and then you mute the kick, okay, and then you go ahead and you record, and everything that's on the kick side, on the kick track, is the snare bleed into the kick. Okay, so what you want to do then is insert a new track at the bottom, of course, and then take the data that was on the kick and you rename that snare bleed. Now once you've completed that task, it's important to go ahead and unmute your kick, and make sure you do that for any grooves that you have and any fills that you have, and that's how you get kick and snare bleed by themselves on their own track. This is Paco. Thanks for watching.